Since 2022, when sanctions were put on Russia, devaluation really sped up the process. That being said, it's now a very, very important topic because of the trade war and what these other countries are going to do next. It's no longer just about the BRICS. We are still keeping an eye on what other countries are going to do and what's going on in the global banking system to see how it will affect not only the dollar, but also the whole system. However, famous people like Warren Buffett are now issuing strong warnings that a big shift is about to happen. We are going to deal with this. This is Nick, and I hope this is your first time on the channel. If it is, I hope you decide to join by the end. Okay, let's talk about this. Well-known people like JP Morgan have been talking about de-dollarization and asking if the US dollar is losing its strength. Lastly, has the idea of getting rid of the dollar been blown out of proportion by a huge amount? I'm sure they're only talking about important things going on in the world system and what's happening with the US dollar. When people talk about getting rid of the dollar, they often try to make it seem urgent, as if the dollar were dead, useless, and gone. But that's the point. We know this won't happen right away. And it hasn't been happening overnight either. As I said, it's been going on for a while, but things really started to pick up in 2008. Deemed BRICS countries started buying a lot of gold in 2010, and that trend has continued for about 20 years, or until now. In other words, the BRICS have been collecting a lot of gold for about 15 years, and that trend is still going strong. On top of that, there is still a big pushback on the US dollar system and the quick base system. All of this is happening faster because of big events like the trade war, sanctions, and tariff talks that are still going on. The US dollar, remember that this isn't going to happen overnight. These events have sped up the change, but it's still happening slowly. That's the most important thing I want you to understand. That the changes are happening slowly, but they're starting to happen. And 2025 seems like the year when they will happen much more quickly. I think that's very clear, even with the stablecoin plans and talks going on in the US. The BRICS are pushing for a time when there are multiple types of currencies. They don't want to depend too much on the dollar. They don't want to use SWIFT too much. And it looks like this is turning into every country will have its own currency, and it will be important to you. These gaps will have to be filled again, and everyone has a different idea of how this will be set up. I've talked about this with the tech side of things over time. In the middle, XRP will connect all of these different currencies. There will also be safe coins and CBDCs, which are pretty much the same thing. There will also be currencies backed by gold, though these will likely be CBDCs, and there will be safe coins backed by CBCs or even gold. XRP or a similar decentralized currency will connect all of these. Coins, the idea sounds good on paper, but we don't know what will happen because we don't know how this will be set up. One thing is for sure, though, it looks like the BRICS countries are finally catching up to the US. This is the GDP growth from October of last year. Right now, BRICS Plus makes up 36.7% of the world's GDP in PPP terms, 23.3% of the world's trade in goods, and 45.2% of the world's people. It's interesting to see how this has changed since the G7 or even the G20. Just like this, the match between BRICS Plus and the G7 shows how BRICS Plus is becoming more important in the world trading of goods. It burns slowly. Like from 2000 to 2023, which is 23 years, the total dominance rose from 10.7% to 23.3%, which is a 12.6% point rise. This is very interesting when we think about it. Another thing to look at is the G7 compared to, say, BRICS Plus. The G7 is starting to lose its stronghold. Okay, let's go over this one more time. Is this really something you need to be worried about right now? No, it's not. As I already said, it's not important right now, but it does show us that the signs are there and that a change is happening. This is what's happening right now. Because of the trade war, central banks all over the world are spreading their money out. As a result, the share of U.S. government debt held by foreigners has dropped to 23%, the lowest level in 22 years. To be clear, this is 11 percentage points less than it was 9 years ago. At the same time, the share of world foreign exchange savings held in gold has reached 18%. 1,026 years, the share has gone up 8% since 2015, the most in that time. China has been the main source of gold bought in the last few years. China has kept 7.1% of its total foreign funds in gold, which is twice as much as it was at the beginning of 2023. Gold is what everyone wants to make clear. It's not just, we know this is true because BlackRock told us on April 27th that China might shift its attention from the US Treasury to Bitcoin and gold. That's the point. It's not just about gold, it's also about Bitcoin and stable coin projects. Then we have the big one, Japan. Things go horribly wrong when Japan starts to flip because Japan holds a lot of US bonds. I have a shocking news. Japan's finance minister said that the country's US Treasury stocks could be used as a bargain chip in trade talks. Boom. That's it. No one needs to be surprised. That was on May 1st. Right around the time that things started to change in the system. Is a good idea to hold a lot of different currencies besides the US dollar. First, I think he means cryptocurrencies, not just fiat currencies. I also think that we are thinking about other options like gold as money. If you really think about it, the most important thing here is to look at crypto, but there's a very important hint that something good is about to happen. We got a good idea of what he meant when he said that things might happen in the US that would make us want to hold a lot of different currencies. We still want to look at crypto, but this makes us think of gold. Maybe Warren Buffett is noticing a change in the US bond market, which is why we're looking at crypto. When we think of that, we quickly think of their stable coins because companies like Tether are buying a lot of US treasuries, but I'm not asking you to hold on to safe coins. It's probably worse to have valuable things around during a trade war or the pandemic in 2020. We now know that having more valuable things around than just gold and crypto was helpful in the long run, but it's very important to pay close attention to what the big players say during these times. They won't say out loud, yeah, you should invest in this. This is something you should buy and hold on to this. They told you something we already knew, which is why it's important to put money into things like crypto. Get away and buy gold and silver in the long run. Right now, when prices are going up, it's not a good idea to hold on to dollars because you're still losing money. Plus, we all know what's going on with the trade war, so why not look into other options? We know what's going on with BRICS. What do other countries that use BRICS do that China doesn't?